Hello, racing fans. Welcome back to the HOS F1 podcast. I'm your host, Adrian Huff, joined as always by my co-host, RJ McCullough. We've got an action-packed F1 weekend for you. Austria GP, my personal favorite track, I would say. It's probably my all-time favorite. RJ, let's just go ahead and real quick start off. What do you think about the Austrian GP? Like, just as a whole, the track itself. I know it's the Red Bull Ring, and I mean, clearly by your shirt, it's probably not going to be your favorite, but like, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, the fact that it's named the Red Bull Ring doesn't exactly do it any favors in my brain. I don't know. It's a pretty simple track. I like it. Like, it's one of the easier ones to navigate your way around. But yeah, it seems like Red Bull always wins. They have that big literal Red Bull statue at the track, so
they do.
There's also been some, I guess it's close to the Netherlands, so there's been some racism there directed towards Lewis. So in that sense, I'm just gonna throw the guilt trip on you now. So in that sense, maybe not my favorite, but all in all, like I do tend to favor the European races. Just it feels more F1, if you know what I'm saying.
Sure.
So yeah, all in all, I'd say it's not at the top, not at the bottom. It's just sort of seems like it's like a ramp up to like Spa and all the real good European tracks. So yeah, overall I would say that I like it. Is that a sufficient answer for you?
I think so. Yeah, it's interesting that you say, and we'll sort of quickly recap last year's GP, but a non-Red Bull driver won last year, which I did not remember that off the top of my head, but as soon as the recap started, everything started rolling back of how insane last year's race was. So hopefully we get something nearly as substantial. But I jumped way out ahead of you, so let's get back to the beginning. How are you doing? What's going on?
I'm doing pretty
excited
good
for this episode.
Yeah, very excited. I had my brother and I do a golf tournament every year, so I had that on the weekend. I went to a Jays game the other day, and then maybe most importantly, Bogey got her stitches out and everything, so she's doing good. I'll send you over some pictures later.
Yes, please do.
Bogey's on the road to recovery, so that's always good. I also had some time to think about your punishment because I got dealer's choice, and you do get a veto if you don't want to do this. But I was thinking it'd be quite humorous if at the start of next week's episode you were to give us a nice rendition of "I'm a Little Teapot" with all the little movements. You know, you can just spend some time learning that, and you can just give us that on the podcast. I think that'd be
okay. Interesting.
Yeah.
I would have never in my life predicted that was what you were going to choose. I was fully expecting you to say, as soon as the episode starts, we're shaving the stash.
No, I'll save that one for if that actually comes up on the wheel.
Okay. Shit, I won't veto that. I mean, I feel like there's probably much, much worse like shit that you can come up with, and Max being on your team, I gotta really hold on to that as long as I can, I think.
Yeah, it's been 4 races in a row that he's won.
Yeah.
Probably be 5 after this weekend. I think you mentioned last year. I think this is the last time Ferrari won a race was last year here. Could be wrong. I guess
I believe so. Oh no, Sainz win.
Silverstone,
I think.
Yeah. So maybe it was Charles's last one was here. But yeah, it seems like forever ago.
Mm-hmm. It does.
But yeah, I guess we can kind of, unless you have any life stuff you want to talk to, we can kind of get into Max's partner.
No, let's absolutely jump into that. I don't think anything that has been going on with me is as fascinating as what came out this morning. I know we already know. I'm sure everybody else already knows, but we're not exactly sure of how severe the illness is, but Checo is fully missing the full Thursday media pre-practice track day. This is sort of the day where you get all these iconic moments of the drivers. You get either, the 2 pairings, or sometimes they'll have, 4 of the drivers sat up there. Or I guess they also do the post-race stuff, but there's always the media day on Thursday. And I mean, I believe it's part of the I know, Lando Norris has also missed this day this season, and, drivers miss it all, every season this happens, but it's just so interesting to me that this is happening right at this weekend. I think in probably one of the most important, pivotal moments in his racing career, potentially, besides Abu Dhabi, I would say.
Yeah, so I guess by that I can infer that you think there's maybe a little more going on here than just him actually being sick, or...
I don't know if there's I mean, I think it could be potentially caused by the stress, but I feel like, you know, what we talked about last week is like the pressure and how almost mandatory it is that he does well this weekend. So the fact that he's ill, I just don't think it's already starting off bad for him. Now, you know, there is that potential with the conspiracy stuff. You know, I'm all about that. I think that would be I mean, you never know with especially Red Bull, but I think if this even has a chance of him missing any practice at all, I mean, it's like it's going to have massive repercussions potentially.
Yeah, they really only get like one practice and then they're right into quali, so
yep, with a sprint.
I mean, they said Red Bull's saying all the right things, just that it's a bit of a precaution maybe, and that he should be good to go for tomorrow. But I mean, I don't know who the reserve driver is that's there. I mean, I know they all have reserve drivers, but whether or not they're actually at the track that weekend, is there an F2 race this weekend? I don't know. But yeah, it'll be interesting if he can't go tomorrow to see what they do. Yeah, just kind of a bad string of weeks for Checo. Like, just kind of keeps getting worse, and a lot of it is self inflicted. Like, a lot of it is doing himself. Now, obviously, if you're sick, you're sick. There's nothing like that you can that happens to everyone, right? Especially absolutely. With their schedules and whatnot. But yeah, it's just interesting. Just can't really imagine things getting worse for him. And then if he has another bad weekend, like if he doesn't put up good points this weekend, like second place points this weekend, the narrative is just going to continue, and the pressure is just going to mount even more for him. So we'll see how that goes.
We will. And a little flashback to last year, he had a pretty, well, I say pretty, he had an absolutely horrible race last season. If you remember, I believe it was on lap, I don't know the exact lap, but early in the race, he was taken out and hit into the gravel. Whose fault it was, you know, I guess that's up for debate, but Carlos actually knocked him into the gravel, which caused him to eventually DNF. So, I mean, Carlos also may have gotten karma for that later in the race because his car fucking exploded, but I'm so interested. Sergio, my eyes are going to be fully on him. Like, I just want to watch honestly, I should subscribe to Sky F1 so I can press my red button and watch Sergio's onboard all weekend. But yeah, I'm very excited. So, like you said, we'll see what happens to poor Checo.
I think we all have that phrase, just like anyone that watches F1, just like burned into your brain. For Sky Sports customers, press the red button if you'd like to go back and watch the race in the beginning, or to see the biggest moments from the race. It's like, all right, I guess everyone just picks up the Sky Sports feed. But
they do.
Yeah, no, it's gonna be definitely one of the more interesting storylines to watch this weekend. A couple more that we'll touch on. Obviously, there's the Lewis and Alonso fight for second or third. But yeah, a lot of things.
Yes.
I want to quickly talk money and maybe a little more celebrity influence getting into F1. Ryan Reynolds, Canadian Ryan Reynolds, he bought a soccer team with Rob McElhenney a couple years ago. They have a TV show, I think it's on Apple TV, called Welcome to Wrexham, and the team is going up the ladder. It's a really good show, actually, kind of like a real-life Ted Lasso. He was rumored to be buying he tried to buy the Ottawa Senators NHL team. He didn't get that, but now he has secured Alpine Racing has secured a $200 million cash deal from a group of investors, including Ryan Reynolds, Rob McElhenney, and Michael B. Jordan. So he's joining the group. I wonder how those guys came together. Maybe Ryan Reynolds and Michael B. Jordan have done a movie together. I'm not sure. But yeah, they've acquired a 24% stake in the team. So that's it's pretty interesting. My article here's not loading. There's something there, but
I've got the link pulled up if you want me to read it.
There was just something at the bottom that was interesting, but it's not loading now. So while that loads, yeah, if you want to read it, you can.
Yeah, so Alpine's value as of now, I guess this is fully updated. They are the 6th most valuable F1 team. They're valued at $1.08 billion. I think that's in American, dollars, I guess. I don't think that's in pounds, but their operating profit is $35 million last year, which, doesn't seem that high, but it's the same as Red Bull's, which is kind of crazy to me.
Yeah, that is crazy.
But I'm extremely kind of hesitant just because of the celebrity stuff, but from what Ryan Reynolds and Rob McElhenney have posted, and they're always at the Wrexham games or what. I don't know anything about soccer, so I don't know their team, but they're always at the games posting about it. So if they're posting about F1 and they're always at the Alpine races, I'm super on board for that. And if this also means potential shakeups at Alpine, also cool with that. I think Otmar is just mid. I don't think he's anything exceptional, but I don't know if he's necessarily the cause of all the troubles at Alpine. I think that falls under the CEO of Alpine, Rossi.
Yeah, Laurent Rossi.
I believe. Yeah, he just makes a lot of really poor decisions. And after making that statement recently about how their 100 race plan is going to be extended to 120 now, probably, that is just so funny to me.
Okay, so that's what I wanted to talk on, was the Alpine CEO. I just pulled up again. Alpine CEO Laurent Rossi's 100 race plan to turn Alpine into title contenders. That seems like something that someone says just to buy themselves time. That's minimum 4 years.
Yep.
You're just buying your
wild.
You might as well just say we're gunning for the next regulations, because that's essentially what it is. So yeah, that's sort of weird. But that brings me to another thing that kind of ties into that. This guy on Twitter, Vincenzo Landino, he has a lot of followers. He posted, with the new investment into Alpine F1 team this week, here's a look at how other F1 teams stack up in valuation. I don't know if this is surprising. I guess I was a little surprised that Ferrari is quite a bit above the rest in terms of value. They're $3.13 billion value. But last year their operating profit was it was $50 million, which is, I guess, still the second highest in terms of operating profit. Mercedes, second most valuable, $2.7 billion. They had $114 million operating profit last year. I don't really understand how that works, because they had their worst year in a long time. Whereas Red Bull only made $4 million last year. They had their best year, but I guess
I wonder if they're counting profits from the vehicles they sell.
Yeah, I don't know. That's interesting, because if it's just a company, then I don't know. That's not really relevant, I would assume it's from F1, but I have no idea. But anyways, yeah, the top three: Ferrari, Mercedes, Red Bull, pretty obvious, and then McLaren fourth, $1.5 billion. Aston Martin and Alpine, the other two that are worth $1 billion. So Lawrence Stroll's investment paying off pretty well. Something he said this week that he should be knighted for was all the money and all that he's put into the team. The least worthy or valuable team is HOS at $710 million. But yeah, if you look at, this is where I think it must be profitable. F1, because Aston Martin had an operating loss of $55 million last year. So it must be F1, because I'm sure the company itself didn't lose that. And Williams lost $12 million last year as well. So I guess if you just look at Williams, they got, I forget his name, but the guy that was on Mercedes as their head guy, and they are putting in a ton of investment and stuff.
No, not James Voles. It's the other guy. James Voles is their new team principal. But yeah, I think the interesting thing to me is, Williams, Aston Martin, and McLaren all had a loss last year, which for Aston Martin, that makes sense. But
yeah, I think all of them, they're investing a lot in their facilities and stuff. So
yep,
I guess. But yeah, it's interesting that Mercedes still, they're kind of like the Yankees. They still make money regardless. So interesting.
I saw my belly there.
What's that?
Nothing. I stood up. I thought my stomach got exposed. Go ahead.
No, not this time. Not this time.
Nope.
So yeah, I guess on the topic of that, while we're talking about money, and brands and stuff, AlphaTauri, Helmut Marko announced that they are rebranding as of next year. They're not going to be called AlphaTauri anymore, and also that it's going to be more of, they're going to stop making their own cars, and they're just going to kind of take the Red Bull car, because they are sort of a junior team to Red Bull. Like, they were doing it, I guess, for innovation. If they have two teams working better than one, but they aren't keeping up at all with Red Bull, so I guess they're figuring the Red Bull car is so much better, why don't we just have a Red Bull junior car and then see who the, like I said to you in our text message, I think it's just going to be like a max teammate feeder system, see who's worthy. So yeah, as a Red Bull fan, what do you think of this AlphaTauri rebrand?
I mean, I feel like they should have been already doing this, to be honest, and I kind of
they used to do,
thought
right?
I think with Toro Rosso, I think that was the case, but since Red Bull's like recent crazy overhaul of just massive success that they've had with their car development, I'm shocked that they haven't taken what they've learned and applied it to the other team that they own. That's just really bonkers to me. Yeah. That being said, I'm glad that they're finally doing it. I hope that the team name continues to reflect like the Red Bull name, because I really liked the Toro Rosso name. I still like that name. If they went back to that, I think that would be really cool. I don't think they're going to, but I mean, I want Yuki to have a better car, you know? I want whoever replaces Nick De Vries, probably Daniel, hopefully, to have, if AlphaTauri starts, or whatever they become, taking some of the knowledge and development parts from Red Bull, then that car is going to be way more competitive. So putting Danny back in that and putting Yuki in that, I think could be such a amazing combination, so much so that they could be ahead of McLaren and Alpine potentially, and maybe even fight for podiums, you know? I mean, Red Bull's so strong right now that I definitely think that, like, it's a smart decision. Like, if anything, it came too late than it should have, but I'm glad they're doing it.
Yeah, I agree. It's going to be, like, I think if they do get rid of Perez, maybe if someone slides up, like Yuki slides up to take that role, or someone else goes in there, just regardless, it'll be a better proving grounds for guys to show what they're doing. Because, I mean, a few years ago, even when Gasly was with them, he won a race in Italy and he had a couple of podiums. So there was that 1 year there where they were quite competitive, but they've just kind of fallen off. So yeah, it makes a lot of sense. And then if we're talking about other teams, I hope I'm not skipping over anything here, but yeah, if we're talking about other teams, there's now 4 teams that have bid for 2026 to get on the grid. I think they're going to increase the grid by then, at least by 1 or 2 teams. So we'll probably have 22 drivers, which it's not the end of the world. But yeah, the 4 teams so far, I'm going to just read them, and you tell me which you would like to join most. And now we've already confirmed that Audi's going to be in, but that's replacing what? Alfa Romeo?
Alfa Romeo.
Okay.
Yep.
So that's not a new necessarily. Say Andretti Autosport. Obviously, we know about that. Oh my God, these ads. Panthera Team Asia. Formula Equal, which aims to have a 50-50 split between genders all the way through the team. And High Tech Pulse 8. They've been in
High-Tech Pulse.
They've been in F2 since 2020. Yeah. So of those 4, which would you like the most?
I mean, I feel like the Asian motorsport. What was the
There's Andretti, the Asian one, Team Equal.
Yep.
And then the last one.
Honestly,
High-Tech.
The first 2 to me sound like the only actual like possibilities.
Yeah.
I think the 50-50 split is like a really, really cool concept, but it seems like something that never gets past the boardroom.
Yeah. It's professional sports.
Yeah, exactly. You gotta, like, the second they start taking a loss and not being profitable, you know, they're gonna rebrand and do whatever. But not to say that I don't want a female driver in F1
100%.
by any means, but definitely Andretti. I feel like they deserve it. You know, he's been wanting it for so long, and I feel like if that gets taken away, I mean, as long as they go through the process, spend the amount of money that's necessary, and have the facilities, I'm going to definitely say Andretti, but I'm also going to say, what if, like, for instance, the second option where any of these are better equipped, have more money, better facilities. I feel like whichever team is like more ready to become an F1 team and to really jump into it is the one that I would be okay with.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I mean, F1 said this, or I guess Liberty Media, who owns F1, said this week that they basically scoff at the idea of selling for $20 billion. Like, they would want way more than that. So they've also said that they're upping. I think originally it was like $500 million they wanted teams to pay, and now it's like $2 billion or something. So I mean, it's quite the valuable proposition and quite the.
It is.
But I mean, if it's anything like NFL teams used to sell for a couple $100 million, and now they're selling for billions and billions. So same with NBA teams. So it does seem to be like the return on the investment is there, despite it being pretty heavy bid.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, that'll be something to watch for in a few years. I feel like we're going to find out relatively soon. So yeah, but before then, you mentioned it a little bit that Nick De Vries. I mean, we've been talking a lot. Last week we talked more about Lance Stroll and Sergio Perez being on the hot seat. The most realistic hot seat is Nick De Vries, and I think Helmut Marko, which I don't know why this guy keeps talking. It's crazy that $20 billion business has so much of it is dictated by this old man.
Yeah.
But he was on a podcast and he said that sometimes him and Christian Horner don't agree on drivers or things, which, I mean, that happens in every business. But the person asked, like, when was the last time this happened? And he said that Horner didn't want Nick De Vries to go in the AlphaTauri seat. Obviously, it's not necessarily Red Bull, but it is their junior team. So he didn't want him. He wanted Mick Schumacher, apparently, which is pretty cool. That's the first good thing I've heard out of Christian Horner's mouth in a long time, unless I misunderstood the quote. But there was just too much red tape to go around, or too many whatever. So they went with Nick De Vries, and then Helmut Marko even said, or I don't know if it was the writer that put this in, that looking like at this point it's looking like Christian was right. So if they are making the team into pretty much a junior Rebel team and they don't want Nick De Vries, then that either opens it up to be Danny Ricciardo or one of the young guys.
Liam Lawson.
Yeah, Yumi Iwasa. I mean, I'm so sorry if I completely butchered that name. But yeah, there's a lot of interesting stuff going on with Red Bull aside from just their insurmountable lead.
For sure. I'll tell you, you can even go back and listen. I was one of the De Vries hype train people. He's on my fantasy team. When he got those points in Monza, I probably even texted you, put him in an F1 car now. Yeah. Get him in a seat. But yikes. I will say, he kind of lost me a little bit. I did not like his attitude or his demeanor in Drive to Survive. And honestly, I cannot wait. I try to hold myself off from rewatching Drive to Survive as much as possible because I've literally watched that show so many times. But I'm ready to go back and watch season 5 just for his fucking like bitchy attitude. Like, look, he is. I mean, they're both rookies, but De Vries and Sargent are the only two guys without points. And I mean, the AlphaTauri I would say is definitely a better car than the Williams. So I'm not gonna. I think it's more of a slight on De Vries. But if you look, where is Yuki? Yuki only has 2 points. If you're looking at the contrary. So I don't know. I mean, I am also sometimes I do say to myself, like, maybe I'm being a little tough on him. He's a rookie. But I don't see him sticking around next season. All that to say, even if you had gone back to the start of this season or before we knew who was replacing Pierre, I would have told you that I would have wanted Mick Schumacher in that seat more than Nick De Vries, even when I was on the hype train. But I'm sure there were like a ton of Mercedes hurdles that they would have had to jump over. So it's understandable that it didn't work out. But I will say, I continue to side with Christian when it's between Helmut and Christian. I'm always going to be Team Horner.
Yeah.
I feel like I feel like he, as much of a fucking prick as he can be, he's the man behind the machine, and a helmet to me doesn't exude that energy as much as Christian does in any way.
Yeah, I feel like Christian and Max are Red Bull. I feel like they encompass that more. So, yeah, I would agree with that. You mentioned Drive to Survive. That reminds me how much the Netflix people must be happy to have Ryan Reynolds and Rob McElhenney and Michael B. Jordan. I'm sure they'll make some sort of appearance, and also they're going to be filming that movie now, starting in Silverstone. So, there's going to be lots of. If they want to make a whole episode about the Hollywoodization of F1, they can do that next year.
They definitely could.
But yeah, I think you ready to talk Austrian GP?
Yes, let's do it.
All right.
So
I'm just gonna pull up.
Yeah, you want to run through, or do you want to talk about last season before we talk about this season, or last year? I mean,
I'll give a quick main points of the track and race and all that, and then you can
do it.
You can give a recap of last year. All right. So, Austrian GP, or the Red Bull Ring. So the first Grand Prix here, 1964. The track length 4.318 kilometers. Sorry for you Americans, I don't know the miles. The lap record 1 minute 5 seconds. Carlos Sainz McLaren 2020. That's interesting. Most pole positions, LM Prost and Max Verstappen with 3 each. Most wins, Niki Lauda, Rene Arnoux, Nelson Piquet, and Valtteri Bottas with 3. And Austria's Red Bull Ring has the fewest corners on the F1 calendar, with just 10 turns making up the layout. The pole run to turn 1 braking point, 230 meters. Overtakes completed last year, 135. The safety car probability from the last 10 races, 50%. Virtual safety car probability, 20%. And the pit stop time loss is just 20.4 seconds. So, pretty quick nip around the track. You want to tell us what happened last year?
Sure. I might have missed it. Did you say how many laps per race?
I did not. That is not on here. But it'll be on this other thing that I have here. 1 sec. Come on, dude.
Lit. It's a lot. I think it's one of the highest of the season, if I'm not mistaken.
Monaco's definitely the most, but this is definitely, it's got to be up there.
Maybe it's 79, maybe?
71.
Like
71.
Way off.
No, not way off. Not bad.
I got the first number right.
Yeah.
But last season, I'll tell you, it is depressing, because if our memories are correct and it was Leclerc's last win, it's so depressing, just because the sheer relief you can hear when he gets the win, and just how happy he is. It's an unfamiliar tune, because we haven't seen it in so long, and it just sucks so much. But yeah, I've kind of gone over a couple of the main points, like Sergio DNF'd. We got surprising Ferrari domination up until towards the end of the race. You had Ferrari running 1-2 the majority of the race, up until probably about lap 54, something like that, I believe. That was when Carlos obviously had the big gas spill where you could just see the smoke coming out of the back of the car, and then it caught fire. One of the coolest pictures from that season. One of the coolest F1 pictures, when he's looking back at his Ferrari on fire. So badass. Surprisingly good midfield battles. There was that moment, one of the coolest midfield moments, where you had Lando, Kevin Magnussen, Zhou Guanyu, and one of the Williams. I'm not 100% sure. I believe it was Albon, but you had all 4 of them going down that first bend after turn 1 and fighting, and it's one of the cool. Definitely recommend everybody go back and watch the recap, because it's awesome. Magnussen, the HOS. I feel like that's one of the last times the HOS was speedy in a race, because they both ended up pretty well. The Red Bull too, it's very strange. It's not a very tough weekend for Red Bull at their home race, which, like you said, is a lot of non-Red Bull drivers have a lot of records here. But it's just crazy to me. You had Checo DNFing, and then Max getting overtaken 2 times by Leclerc. And the Red Bull just had no answer to the speed that the Ferrari was showing, and it's it's just wild to me. Like, not only how quickly that season just flipped over the next 5 or 6 races after that, but how we just have gotten nothing like that since. I mean, I would say that was one of my favorite races of last season too, just because it was just nonstop. So I'm trying to remember if there's anything else that I missed, but yeah, phenomenal track. I cannot wait for this weekend. I think if I could pick one F1 track to just be able to like bucket list, that's not, in America, because those are the most easily those are the ones I'm going to probably go to first, just because it's, easy, or Canada or Mexico. But Austria would be it. Just to, if I was there, I would have like an out of body experience. I just love that track so much. Was there anything else that you remember from last season that stuck out to you, or anything that you're excited for this weekend?
I mean, there was a sprint last year, I believe. There's one this year. I think Max won the sprint there last year.
He did.
And that set the grid, so I guess you said Charles overtook him twice.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, the main thing I remember really was the signs, like his car blowing up at the side of the road, and it was just, that was at the point where it was becoming like a running joke almost, that every race Ferrari would find a way to, at least one of their cars, something would happen. So that's the main thing I remember from last year. But yeah, we have another sprint, and I said only one practice session. So Friday morning Eastern time, 7:30 practice, and then 11 a.m. race quali, and then Saturday morning at 6 a.m. the sprint shootout. So it'll be interesting to see that again. Then the sprint is at 10:30 Saturday morning, and the race 9 a.m. Sunday morning. So pretty typical European times. The only thing that's really early for us is the sprint shootout on Saturday morning. But yeah, not too bad. Not really the end of the world if you miss it anyways.
Sure.
But
I was confused for a second, because I'm like, they've changed it so many times. I'm like, wait, what is so yeah.
Yeah.
Friday quali sets the grid for Sunday, then the sprint shootout Saturday morning sets the grid for the sprint Saturday. It's crazy. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, they'll keep tweaking that as they go. But the weather forecast just might throw a wrench in things. So last episode we discussed, I guess I'll take the blame for this one, that the weather in Montreal, or I guess the weather for the Montreal race, so 2 episodes ago, it was clear skies. It was going to be nice all weekend. Well, that obviously changed because it was rainy all weekend, except for Sunday. But this weekend, according to the F1 website, conditions for FP1 qualifying on Friday, 60% chance of rain. Expect to be sunny in the morning, both increased chance of rain hitting the track in the afternoon. So not the best. Saturday for the sprint shootout and the sprint, 80% chance of rain. High chance of showers in the afternoon with possible thunderstorms. Not great. And then Sunday for the race, partly cloudy in the morning with a slight 20% chance of rain. So it looks like the race Sunday will be okay. But if I wonder what will happen if the sprint shootout or the sprint kind of gets rained out, if they'll move that. I don't know what will happen. They'll probably just cancel it. But yeah, if it comes like in the middle, it's always interesting when the rain starts coming in the middle of a session, because then they have to stay out basically, and they have to adjust to it. So it kind of kills qualifying, because then it's just the time that's on the board goes. But yeah, it could throw an interesting wrench, or it could be a big downer. But let's just hope for the best.
Yeah, as long as nothing gets flooded or canceled, I'm okay. If we can get a wet quali and a wet sprint, and then a dry race, I'll be a happy man. I'll be a very happy man.
Yeah, okay. I'm good with that. I'm on the same wavelength as you. So I guess we usually do our podium predictions. We can do that.
Yes.
But I think I also want to get maybe like a positive and a negative from this weekend. Like, because we kind of know what, like, it's kind of insincere to say anything other than Max Verstappen's going to win. Like, as much as I can hope for Lewis to win, or even Alonso to win, like, realistically, like, Max is probably going to win. So, who do you think's maybe going to have a surprisingly good weekend, or a surprisingly bad weekend, or maybe a team? Like, what are you kind of looking to happen this weekend?
Man, it would be really funny for Alpine to have a really bad weekend right after this announcement. I think that would just be really, really funny. But I mean, I feel like I say this every single week, but Fernando Alonso, at this point, Max, that's a given, but then you've got Fernando and Lewis. Those are the two guys. I mean, there's the three drivers that have scored points every single race so far this season, and it's those three guys. It's so fun watching the three of them. I'm trying to appreciate it because even though they both talk about wanting to stay in F1 forever, these names and these legends, they're not going to be racing forever. New legends will come, whatever, but I'm just really trying to enjoy having these guys still racing around, especially since we do not have Sebastian Vettel this season. That was the other thing, seeing Gasly accidentally tap Seb off the track and him getting annoyed. He's like, what is with these people? I was just like, oh man, I really wish Stroll wasn't in that car and we had Fernando and Seb. That would be the coolest thing ever. But that being said, just definitely going to have my eye on those two guys.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I mean, I'm interested to see, of course, the battle between Lewis and Fernando, and if they have made any strides at all to close the gap. As you said last year, maybe this wasn't the best track for Red Bull, so we'll see how that stacks up after coming off another track that wasn't necessarily the best for them, and then going to, I could be wrong because I haven't looked at the schedule. Silverstone's got to be coming up soon. I know that's usually a good track for Mercedes as well, so we'll see. I mean, I'm just hoping for somewhat of a closer race, but yeah, gonna keep an eye on Checo. Obviously, that's anything worse than second place is just gonna be pretty much a disaster for him. I know McLaren's bringing an upgrade, but they only have one ready, so it's going to Lando. So it'll be interesting to see if they can continue their progress. Maybe see if Lance Stroll can get things on track. But yeah, my interest is always going to be with Lewis and seeing kind of how high up he can go. Hoping that they can continue their progress, their march towards Red Bull. But it's hard to get too amped up for that. But I mean, again, I'm going to say it every week till it happens. But at some point, Max is going to make a mistake, or someone's going to bump Max off track. If it happens to be Alonso and they both go off track, and Lewis happens to pull ahead, wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. But yeah, I mean, in terms of a negative, I think, again, you don't really know if it's going to be a negative, but we'll see how the pressure is getting to De Vries now that it's actually kind of vocalized that he's on the hot seat. And yeah, that's there's a lot of storylines. It's like, even though it's
so many
people on the outside just, Red Bull's dominating, it's 3 years boring. I don't think it really is. I think there's so much going on and so much like build up for what's to come in the future. So I mean, Mercedes and Red Bull are already kind of squabbling a little bit in the media this week. Like Lewis said something about restrictions or regulations on new developments. Something I didn't see the quote, but Max said like, "Oh, I didn't see you complaining when you were winning. Like that's just the way. That's life. Life's not fair." And then Horner said something along the lines of like that he doesn't see his rivalry stopping with Toto. Like it's like that's just like sports. Like we don't believe in being friends with your competitor, which I completely agree with that. But just seeing those two, like, it was nothing huge, but just seeing those kind of bubbling Mercedes Red Bull rivalry, kind of nice to see again, gets the blood going. So yeah, lots to look out for.
I love it. And I'll say I fully agree with you can't be friends with your rivals or your enemies or however you want to put it, because I mean I'm the type of person where I feel bad when this is going to be the most dorky example, but in Mario Party, when I steal a star from one of my friends, I feel horrible about it, and sometimes I don't even do it because I don't want to make them mad. But I should just snatch that thing at any point that I'm able to, because I should want to win at all times. That's how sports should be. Thankfully, that's how the sport is. So. Yeah. I love. My God, that's the first memory I've of Drive to Survive is Toto and Christian just going at it. It's my favorite, and I love it. We got a real good taste of that this past season in Drive to Survive, so it was just such a treat.
Change your fucking car. Yeah, it was,
yes,
it's good. What was it? Oh yeah, shout out to Yuki Tsunoda because he kind of broke Max's win streak. They did what's called like a monster truck race type thing, and Yuki beat Max, so that was nice. Actually, there was a couple like Vettel and I think Danny Rick and maybe Checo. I don't know. A couple Red Bull guys were doing like a Red Bull thing around the Nürburgring in Germany, and Max wanted to go because it's such a legendary track. But Helmut Marko said that they didn't let him go because he knew that Max would just want to know what the the track record was, and he would just, as much as they would tell him like, all right, drive safe, he would just try and break the records. He's like, we can't risk that right now. Which, you know what?
That's so funny.
It is funny, and I see their point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, for sure, because he would. He'd potentially put it in the wall. That's hilarious. Dang, that reminds me, when we first started this season, when they did the reveal, Christian said that Daniel was going to be in Tennessee with the Red Bull car. I've Googled that 3 or 4 times over this season and have seen nothing. There's no announcements, no date, no nothing. I need to know.
It must be around the time that they're going to be in Texas. But
I hope so.
That's
because I will go. I have to.
October, maybe? Yeah.
Not only I will go, I have to.
You do have to. You got to get in there.
I have to start F1 photography. I've got to take a photo of an F1 car so I can actually say I've done it, so I can start that dream.
Yeah, get on it.
Yes.
Yeah, if there's one thing you could hope for this weekend, what would it be?
Oh man. Some good luck to Leclerc. My goodness, he needs it.
That'd be nice. For me, obviously, Lewis getting a win. But, someone other than Max and Checo. Let's break the Red Bull streak at the Red Bull Ring. Stick it right to them. And I'm also looking forward to you doing I'm a Little Teapot next week.
Oh, God. You're going to have to remind me about that.
I will. I certainly will.
Oh, Jesus.
All right. So I think that's about it. Nice little
Yes.
Good stuff.
Yes, lots of stuff we covered. Feel like we condensed it down. Feel like we're just getting better and better every week. Is there anything else you want to say before we get out of here?
Nope. Go Lewis. That's about it.
Go Lewis and go Fernando. But if I had to pick, I would be okay with Lewis winning. I'd be okay with that. So we'll see what happens. Make sure you come back next week when you see me do I'm a Little Teapot, and then we'll recap the Austrian GP and talk about how Max didn't win through this crazy string of circumstances. So please rate the podcast 5 stars, like, subscribe on our YouTube, whatever it is you want to do. Follow us. Just support the show in any way. We will greatly appreciate it. Thank you guys so much. We will see you next week.